Part 1. My dad demanded $30,000 for my sister's wedding. Then she arrived with 2 lawyers. My father looked me straight in the eyes and said, "If your sister wants to walk down that aisle, you'll wire me $30,000 by Friday." A second, I actually laughed. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and placed it on the kitchen table. It wasn't a wedding invitation. It wasn't a guest list. It was a bank account number. "Make me ask twice," he said, standing up. "Family helps family." Then he walked out. That single piece of paper would destroy everything I believed about my father. 3 weeks later, my sister would walk into her own wedding with 2 lawyers by her side and expose a secret that had been buried for nearly 30 years. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 34 years old, and until recently, I thought my family was ordinary. We lived in Columbus, Ohio. My father, Richard Carter, owned a small construction company. My mother, Linda, passed away from breast cancer in 2018 after she died. Everything changed. Dad became colder, more controlling, more interested in money than people. At first, I blamed grief. Everyone handles loss differently. But years passed, and he never became the man he used to be. Instead, he became someone none of us recognized, especially my younger sister, Emily. Emily was 28. She was kind, hardworking, and probably the only person who still believed there was goodness left inside our father. Whenever Dad shouted, she defended him. Whenever he ignored birthdays or holidays, she made excuses. "He's hurting," she'd whisper. "He just doesn't know how to show love anymore." I wanted to believe her. I really did. Then Emily got engaged. Her fiancé was Daniel Brooks, a high school history teacher. Daniel wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He simply loved my sister with everything he had. He proposed on a quiet autumn evening beside Hoover Reservoir. No expensive photographers, no luxury yacht. Just a simple ring and an honest promise. Emily cried. Daniel cried. Even I cried when she showed me the pictures. For the first time since Mom died, our family had something worth celebrating. Or so I thought. The problems started less than 48 hours after the engagement. Dad called Emily into his office. She came out 20 minutes later with red eyes. "What happened?" I asked. She forced a smile. "Nothing." I knew that smile. It was the same smile Mom used to wear whenever Dad said something cruel, a smile designed to hide pain. Over the following weeks, Dad became strangely obsessed with the wedding. He wanted to approve every decision, the venue, the flowers, the guest list, even the color of Emily's dress. When Daniel politely suggested keeping the ceremony simple to save money, Dad exploded. "Her wedding isn't supposed to look cheap," Daniel calmly replied. "I'd rather have a happy marriage than an expensive wedding." Never forgave him for saying that. From that day forward, he treated Daniel like an outsider. Then came the family dinner that changed everything. Dad invited everyone over on a Sunday evening. The table looked perfect: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, Mom's old china plates. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. Then Dad cleared his throat. Decided something. Answered. "Invested too much into this family." Emily looked confused. "So," Dad leaned back, "if this wedding is happening, I expect everyone to contribute." Daniel nodded politely. "Of course. Emily and I are paying for almost everything ourselves." Dad smiled. "But not enough." He turned toward me. "Ethan." I looked up. "Need $30,000. Room became silent. I honestly thought I'd misheard him. "What? For your sister's wedding?" I blinked. "Asking me to pay $30,000. I'm telling you." Daniel almost dropped his fork. Emily whispered, "Dad." He raised his hand. Quiet. Then he looked back at me. "Got savings. That's my emergency fund." "This is a family emergency." I laughed. "No, it isn't." His face hardened instantly. "I sacrificed my whole life raising both of you." "You were our father," I answered. "That wasn't a business investment." Temperature in the room seemed to drop. Dad slowly stood up. "Ungrateful little." Emily interrupted. "Dad, please." But he ignored her. "If your mother were alive, she'd be ashamed of you." That sentence hit harder than anything else because he knew exactly where to hurt me. I stood up. "Use Mom to manipulate me." He slammed both hands onto the table. I said, "I need the money." Every plate rattled. Daniel quietly moved closer to Emily. I could see she was shaking. For the next few seconds, nobody spoke. Then Dad said something that made my blood freeze. "If you don't pay." He paused. "This wedding may not happen." Emily's face turned white. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "A father has certain rights." Daniel stared at him. "No, you don't." Dad simply picked up his wine glass. "We'll see." That night, none of us slept. The next morning, Emily called me crying. "Ethan." "What happened?" He canceled the venue. "What?" He told them he owned the deposit. I immediately drove across town. Emily was sitting inside Daniel's apartment surrounded by wedding magazines and unopened invitation envelopes. She looked exhausted. Daniel handed me printed emails. Dad had canceled the florist, canceled the photographer, canceled the catering company. Every reservation made through his name had disappeared overnight. He planned this, Daniel whispered. He wanted control from the beginning. Emily buried her face in her hands. I don't understand. Neither did I, not yet, but deep inside. I had the strange feeling this wasn't really about a wedding. This was about something much darker, something Dad had been hiding for years, and none of us were prepared for what we were about to discover. Part 2. My dad demanded $30,000 for my sister's wedding. Then she arrived with 2 lawyers. I wish I could tell you everything fell apart slowly. It didn't. It happened in less than 72 hours. By Wednesday morning, every vendor connected to the wedding had received the same phone call. I'm Richard Carter, the bride's father. The wedding has been canceled. Some refunded deposits. Others kept the money because the cancellation came too late. Nearly $18,000 vanished in a single day. Emily sat on Daniel's apartment floor surrounded by torn seating charts and unopened wedding gifts. She didn't cry anymore. She simply stared at the wall. That frightened me more than tears ever could. Daniel finally broke the silence. This isn't about money. I looked at him. What do you mean? He opened his laptop. Been keeping records. He pulled up every email Dad had sent over the past 4 months. At first, they looked ordinary, suggestions about flowers, questions about invitations, guest lists. Then the tone changed. One email caught my attention. Before the ceremony, certain financial matters must be resolved. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee my support. The date was almost 3 months earlier, long before Dad demanded $30,000. Daniel looked at me. He planned this from the beginning. A cold chill ran down my spine. Dad wasn't reacting emotionally. He was following a plan. But why? That afternoon, I drove to my father's construction office. The receptionist recognized me immediately. He's with a client. Wait. 20 minutes later, the office door opened. Dad stepped out laughing with a man in an expensive gray suit. The moment he saw me, his smile disappeared. What are you doing here? We need to talk. I don't. He started walking away. I followed him. You canceled Emily's wedding. I canceled what I paid for. You barely paid anything. He stopped. Then he leaned close enough that only I could hear him. You still have until Friday. I stared back. Not giving you $1. His expression didn't change. Then your sister will learn actions have consequences. Before I could answer, he climbed into his truck and drove away. I stood there wondering why a father would destroy his own daughter's wedding. The answer came from someone I never expected, my Aunt Susan, Mom's older sister. She called me that evening. Ethan, I heard about Richard. You know something, don't you? There was a long pause. I promised your mother I would never say anything. My heart started pounding. What secret? Another silence, then she whispered. Your father has been drowning in debt for years. I froze. That's impossible. Hid everything. Who? Everyone. According to Aunt Susan, Dad's construction company had been losing money since 2021. Bad investments, failed contracts, lawsuits, bank loans, credit lines. He kept borrowing money to hide older debts. By early 2026, he was almost bankrupt. I couldn't believe it. Dad always acted wealthy, new truck, luxury vacations, expensive watches. It was all borrowed money. He was pretending, Aunt Susan said quietly. But why ask me for $30,000? Her answer made my stomach turn. Because the bank gave him one last deadline. Friday, the exact same day Dad demanded the money. Everything suddenly made sense. The wedding wasn't the reason, it was the excuse. Dad needed cash immediately, otherwise he would lose everything, including the construction company he had spent 35 years building. I drove straight to the county records office the next morning. Public records don't lie. Within 30 minutes, I found them: tax liens, court filings, business judgments. One document stood out. A commercial bank had filed legal action against Richard Carter Construction for nearly $612,000 payment deadline. Friday, the same Friday. I leaned back in my chair. The pieces finally fit together. Dad wasn't trying to save Emily's wedding. He was trying to save himself. When I showed Daniel the documents, he clenched his fists. He was willing to ruin Emily's future just to delay his own failure. Emily quietly shook her head. No, loves us. Neither of us answered, because neither of us believed that anymore. That evening, something unexpected happened. Dad came to my house alone, no shouting, no anger. He looked exhausted, older for a brief moment. He looked like the father I remembered. I just need help, he said softly. Tell Emily the truth. I can't. Why? His eyes filled with tears. Because she'll never forgive me. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. Then he said something that erased every ounce of sympathy. If you transfer the money tonight, allow the wedding to happen. Allow, as if he owned her life. I slowly stood up. You still think this is about permission? It is, Dad. It's about control. His face hardened again. Sound just like your mother. I took a deep breath. You know what Mom used to tell me? He remained silent. She said one day the truth always collects its debt. He laughed. You have no proof. I smiled. I wasn't talking about the bank. The first time, I saw fear in my father's eyes, real fear. He turned around without another word and walked out. The next morning, Emily called me. Ethan, you okay? No, what's wrong? I found Mom's old safety deposit box. I stopped breathing. Our letters. What kind of letters? They're addressed to both of us. One says. She struggled to speak. Only if your father ever asks you for money. Every hair on my arm stood up. Mom had known. Years before she died, she had known something like this could happen. Inside that box was the truth that would change everything. And before the wedding day arrived, Emily made one phone call, not to the florist, not to the venue, not to the police. She called 2 lawyers. She told them, I think it's finally time to read my mother's last letter. Part 3. My dad demanded $30,000 for my sister's wedding. Then she arrived with 2 lawyers. The morning of the wedding should have been filled with laughter. Instead, my sister sat in a lawyer's office, holding a yellow envelope that our mother had sealed 8 years earlier. Across the table sat 2 attorneys. One specialized in estate law, the other specialized in financial fraud. Neither of them said a word. Emily slowly opened the envelope. Inside were 3 handwritten letters, one addressed to her, one to me, and one that simply read, to Richard Carter. There was also a thick stack of documents, property records, bank statements, insurance papers. Copies of canceled checks. Mom had kept everything. Emily unfolded the first page. Her hands were shaking. She began reading aloud. My dear Ethan and Emily, if you're reading this, it means your father has finally done what I prayed he never would. He has chosen money over his children. I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm not, everything you need to know is inside this envelope. I couldn't breathe. The room fell silent. Mom explained that years before she became sick, she had discovered Richard had secretly borrowed enormous sums of money. Instead of admitting the truth, he hid the debts. He refinanced the family home, he forged financial documents, and on 2 occasions, he tried convincing Mom to transfer property into his name alone. She refused. Then came the sentence that changed everything. House your father believes he owns legally belongs to both of you. Emily looked at the lawyers. What does that mean? One attorney opened the property records. When your mother updated her estate plan, she placed the property into a protected family trust. Your father was allowed to live there, but he never became the sole owner. I stared at him, so he couldn't legally sell it. The attorney nodded. Correct. He certainly couldn't use it as collateral without consequences. Everything suddenly made sense. Dad wasn't desperate because of the wedding. He was desperate because the bank had finally discovered the truth. Mom had protected us years before she died. She knew this day might come. Then the second lawyer spoke. There is something else. He slid another document across the table, a bank transfer date. Only 5 days before Dad demanded $30,000. Amount, $147,000 transferred overseas. Emily frowned. Where did that money go? The lawyer answered quietly. Still investigating. It wasn't used to pay business debts. I felt sick. Dad hadn't just hidden money, he had moved it. The wedding ceremony was scheduled to begin at 2 o'clock. By 1:30, the church was full. Guests whispered about the missing decorations, about the canceled vendors. Nobody understood why the atmosphere felt so tense. Then the front doors opened. Everyone expected to see Emily instead. 2 lawyers walked in first. The entire church became silent behind them. Emily entered wearing the simple white dress she had bought months earlier. She looked beautiful, not because of the dress, because she looked fearless. Dad stood near the front beside the minister. He forced a smile until he saw the lawyers. His face turned completely pale. He whispered, "What is this?" Emily kept walking. She stopped only a few feet away from him, then she handed him the sealed letter. Mother's final message. Dad refused to touch it. "You don't need lawyers at your wedding." Emily answered calmly, "No, I needed them because you're here." Guests stared in complete silence. One lawyer stepped forward. "Mr. Richard Carter, represent Emily Carter and Ethan Carter, are also acting on instructions left by the late Linda Carter." Dad tried to interrupt. You have no right, the lawyer continued. You demanded $30,000 from your son under false pretenses. You intentionally interfered with contractual agreements. You concealed significant financial liabilities. Evidence suggests multiple fraudulent financial transactions. Every word landed like thunder. Dad's knees almost gave out. People inside the church began whispering. Some stood up, others pulled out their phones. The lawyer wasn't finished. Effective immediately. You are instructed not to sell, transfer, or borrow against any property connected to the Carter family trust. Dad's voice cracked. Linda, she wouldn't do this. Emily looked him directly in the eyes. No, protected us. The first time in my life, I saw my father cry real tears, not because he lost money, because he had finally lost control. He slowly opened Mom's letter as he read it. His shoulders collapsed. The final paragraph was short. Richard, love the man you once were, but if greed ever became more important than our children, they deserve protection from you, not because I stopped loving you, because I never stopped loving them. Dad couldn't finish reading. The letter slipped from his hands. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. After nearly a minute, Emily gently turned toward Daniel. She smiled. The first time. I'm free. Daniel took her hand. The minister quietly asked, would you still like to continue with the ceremony? Emily looked at me. I nodded. So did the lawyers. One of them smiled. Work here is finished. They quietly walked to the back of the church. The wedding music started again, this time. No expensive flowers, no luxury decorations, no extravagant reception, just two people promising to love each other for the rest of their lives. It was the most beautiful wedding I had ever seen. 3 months later, Dad pleaded guilty to several financial offenses as part of a negotiated settlement. He avoided a lengthy trial, but he lost his construction company, was ordered to pay restitution, and accepted court supervision under the agreement. Emily and Daniel bought a small house. They filled it with photographs of Mom, not Dad, Mom, because she was the one who truly held our family together. As for me, I kept the folded piece of paper with Dad's bank account number, not as a reminder of what he asked for, but as proof that greed always demands one payment too many. And every time I look at it, I remember something my mother wrote in her final letter. Money can buy a wedding, but it can never buy a family. End.